Hey guys, I wanted to talk today about horses, specifically some things that I wish I knew before getting horses. And most people can find a lot of information online and they'll think, oh, I'm ready to get my first horse, or I grew up around horses, or I have my own thoughts about everything. And the God's honest truth is, having a horse can be extremely rewarding, but it can also be a little bit nerve-wracking at the same time, because there's a lot of things that if you've not been around horses that you'll learn very quickly. And I want to go over some of those things. And the first thing I want to cover is what I've learned about horse health. A horse's guts are very sensitive. Some horses, just like with children, are easier to take care of than others. Some horses don't need a lot of upkeep or maintenance, or they just have good, strong genetics and good, strong immune systems and the ability to process pretty much any kind of food you give them. And then there's other horses that you'll hear terms like they're a hard gainer or an easy gainer. Some horses are very easy to keep weight on, and some horses are not. So the first thing that I would say that really kind of shocked me was my yellow mare back here. Let's see if you can see her. That's Daisy. Hey, Cece. This is Cece right here. Daisy's in the middle and Rusty's down there on the end. Now, all of my horses came from a gentleman that got all of his horses from auctions. And specifically what he did was he would get them from auctions, and then he would ride them and work with them and try to match them up with riders that had the skill level he thought that would be an appropriate match for that person. So anyway, that yellow mare I have over there, she was extremely hard to put weight on. And I couldn't figure it out. For the longest time, I was like, what's happening? Is she sick? Because when you get a horse from auction or from an unknown source, you don't know what that horse has been through. And all my horses are grade. I've had registered horses in the past. But the thing about having a grade horse is you don't always know their age. You don't always know what's going on with them, what happened, why did they go to the auction. There's just a lot of variables. So I would say a skinny horse is not always a bad horse. She's actually the best riding horse that I have. She's very calm and gentle, but she can eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, and she just barely ever gains any weight. I have to usually put joint supplements in her feed, and so I feed all of my horses Triple Crown Senior feed. Specifically, I use the Triple Crown Diamond Senior. Hey, Cece. And beet pulp pellets. And the reason for that is because the beet pulp is really a good filler. It helps them to gain weight. It helps with their digestion. And the Triple Crown Senior Diamond that I use, really what sold me on that was the fact that it made pretty easy mash when you got it wet. But it doesn't have a lot of sugar in it. And I like that. I'm not a big fan of high starch and high sugar feeds for my horses. I really do love giving them good forage, good hay. Good hay is very important. And if you're not sure about the quality of hay that you are thinking about getting for your horses, before you buy a horse, you need to be able to get a hold of some good hay. In Texas, where I'm originally from, it wasn't so easy to get alfalfa, but it was very easy to get grass hay. After moving up here to Wyoming, I figured out that getting alfalfa is actually a lot easier up here, and it's a lot cheaper too. And you hear all these stories about alfalfa making horses hot. I haven't had any issues with that. Wow, you're dirty. I need to get you brushed off again. Most of my horses, they live for the Triple Crown Senior Diamond I mentioned in the beet pulp pellets, but I also use the 100X products. I use the Gut X, the Joint Flex, sometimes the Max Calm, just depending on what's going on with them that day. And I've noticed a tremendous difference in my horse's ability to not only navigate up and down the hills that I have out here, but just their everyday quality of life. They seem a lot happier. And if you look at the ingredients on Gut X and the Joint Flex, which is made by the same company, there's one ingredient that's common between the two, but then there's another ingredient that Gut X has that Joint doesn't, and Joint has that Gut X doesn't. I'm really big on reading labels and seeing what I'm putting in their bodies, only because some things can be exactly the same as another thing. They're just labeled differently. And so one product may be advertised for joint health and another one may be advertised for fatty acids or whatever, but it could literally be the same thing. You never know. So just something I would suggest if you're a new horse owner or looking into getting horses is learn to read labels. Reading labels is very key. And don't treat all your horses the same. Yes, there are a lot of things about horses like flies. They all hate flies. I have some new fans that I put up out here in my stables, and I had a really, really bad fly problem out here, worse than I've ever had in Texas. So I had to put weed killer out and barn lime and fly traps and all kinds of stuff. And eventually I found a concentrate that you mix it with water in a bug sprayer, and I think it's 1 or 1.5 ounces per 2 gallons, and you literally just spray the walls, and it's supposed to keep insects away and flies and stuff up to 4 weeks. I've been doing it every 2 weeks just because I feel like this place, since it does have such a high concentration of flies, and we've had heat and a little bit of moisture here and there, but I've had a pretty serious fly problem, and all horses hate flies. Now, you're never going to have 100% of the flies gone. Hey, Cece. You're never going to have 100% of the flies gone, but you can do what you can do. That's another thing is, before I got horses, I wish I'd have known this, is a lot of horse spray that's very expensive. Yes, it's worth getting as far as a short-term treatment. Like if you're going to go riding that day and you just need to spray your horse down because you need something to keep the flies off of them while you're riding, most of those have citronella oil in them. And that's fine, but it doesn't last long. They do make concentrates that you can spray on your horse that actually last a bit longer. And I keep mentioning the word concentrate because I'm not a real big fan on wasting money on things that I don't need to waste money on, because it can add up fast. Trust me, if you've never had a horse before and you're looking into getting horses, one thing to learn is the expenses can add up quick. So I suggest starting off with one horse. Don't make that mistake of saying, oh, I've got one horse, my horse needs a friend, so I'm going to have two. Another thing that I will say that I've never dealt with this before until this year was thrush. Where I'm from in West Texas, it's so dry that anything wet that hits the ground is pretty much completely dry within 15 to 20 minutes. It gets hot very quickly, but up here it seems to come and go. Like one day it'll be 100 degrees, the next day it'll be 85. Some days I have standing water on the ground, some days I don't. And I learned really quickly that my horse's feet, if I don't keep them clean the right way, they can develop this thrush problem, which, don't quote me on this, but in my estimation, it's pretty much like athlete's foot for horses. Does that feel good? Is that the spot? And when you have a farrier come out, that's another thing, a farrier, which shouldn't have to be said out loud, but you'd be surprised how many people don't think about every 8 weeks needing to trim their horse's feet, change their shoes out. A horse's hoof is a very important system to their entire way of operating. The frog in a horse's hoof acts like a pump. So if you've ever watched cartoons or TV shows or seen anything where horses can just sprint and they can run a long, long ways. It's because every step they take when they're pushing down on their hoof, the triangular shaped area known as the frog is actually pumping blood back up their leg. Now, I'm not a farrier and I'm not a vet, so take this with a grain of salt. I'm just sharing with you the information that was shared with me. So taking care of your horse's feet, not only can it affect how they perform, it affects their comfort level, their day-to-day stuff, and at the end of the day, the happier your horse is, the happier you're going to be. Your horse's health and happiness level, I'll say, it all comes down to the owner. I'm very, like for instance, I am very, like I pet my horses a lot. I mean, yes, when it's time for business, it's time for business. But at the same time, when we're just chilling out here hanging out, if the horses want to be petted, they'll come up to me. I don't pressure them. Some of my horses are just clingy and some of them are not. But at the end of the day, my horses know that I take care of them. We have developed a bond over the years because they trust me and I communicate with them pretty effectively. And horses, you know, they communicate via body language mostly. And if you really pay attention to what your horses are doing, they'll tell you. You know, like my horses, they know I'm going to scratch them and I'm going to pet them. And Cece here, like, she'll walk right up to me and she'll say, hey, like, I want to be scratched right here. This is where I want to be petted. And she's been rolling around in the dirt a lot. She needs a bath. She's just like a puppy dog. She loves to roll around. Another thing that is very important to understand as a horse owner is the deworming process. And I've heard a lot of different things from a lot of different people about a lot of different ways of doing this. They have deworming feed. I don't use that. The most common method that I've come across is the gel. The gel in the syringe. She wants some butt scratches here. Oh, does that feel good? There's a gel that comes in a syringe. It doesn't have a needle, it's just an open-ended tube. You pop the blue cap off, stick it in their mouth. And horses that are not used to that, they will fight you on it. Daisy over there, my yellow mare, she does not like taking that tube in the mouth. She will fight you tooth and nail on the ivermectin. But a trick that I learned is a little bit of sugar helps the medicine go down. So what I'll actually do is I will take a donut and I will inject that ivermectin into a solid donut, and then she'll just eat the donut and she's happy with it. Cece right here, she'll take the tube just fine. There's also a lot of controversy over the pour-on ivermectin. Now, pour-on ivermectin is usually used in cattle and sheep and stuff like that. You can use it on horses, but read the instructions. I cannot stress that enough. Read the instructions first. I have some pour-on ivermectin that is approved to use on horses, but it's not the preferred method. So how do you decide which method is best for you? Well, it's really simple. Consult with your vet. In Texas, I had to deworm my horses 4 times a year. It was just a standard thing. 4 times a year, once every 3 months, deworm them. Up here, it's twice a year. I'm 1,000 miles north of where I grew up. And it's a whole different world up here. It's a beautiful world, but it does come with its own, let's just say, ways of living. And there's a lot more cold, a lot more snow, a lot more freezing weather, a lot more issues that I'm not necessarily used to dealing with, but I'm getting accustomed to them. But I will say that deworming my horses twice a year, it almost feels like I'm cutting a corner, but I'm really not. So I deworm them right at the beginning of spring and then about mid-fall. Also, you need to be careful as far as deworming them, how much you're giving them, because there are some dewormers that it'll tell you on the label, do not underdose. Underdosing can be bad. Now, most of those syringes I was telling you about, they have instructions on them, and it has a little screw tab on the plunger, and you can set it by weight of the horse. And if you don't know the weight of the horse, there's ways of guessing around that. I'm not going to get into that. I highly suggest having a good vet. All my horses have a good vet. I know their weights. I'm pretty aware of everything that's going on with them. The vet bills can pile up, you know, if you have a horse that is just, you know, not doing good. But most of my horses are healthy, and I've had a few success stories as far as having unhealthy horses. Rusty over there, the dark bay, he was in real bad shape when I got him. He was super skinny, super emaciated, real ribby, low energy, real lethargic. Now, he wasn't abused or mistreated. He just looked like his owners, I don't know who they were. They, like I said, I got him from a horse trainer, and he got him from an auction. Hey, what are you doing down there? You biting my jeans? Are you hungry? Is that what's going on? Yeah, see, horses communicate, and they will bite, by the way. But anyway, I pretty much put him on a feeding regimen where he could just have all the hay he wanted, free choice. And I had an issue with him that I'd never seen happen before. He got kind of a hay belly. And at first I thought, well, they sold him to me as a gelding, and I didn't check the goods down there. I just kind of trusted because he'd never lied to me before. And I was like, man, this horse really looks pregnant. Like, he's super wide. When I first got him, he was super skinny. Within 3 months, he just looked like he was carrying an extra 300 pounds of weight right in his stomach area. It was really starting to concern me. And so I checked him, and sure enough, he's a gelding. And then I've learned firsthand what a horse that I don't know if he was having gut issues or just eating too much of a certain type of grass or what, I don't know, but he was still really skinny in the legs, neck, front area, just a real wide stomach. So I put him in a stable, and what I did was I started feeding him hay in proportion to his body weight. And what that means is there is like a measurement, and you can look all this stuff up on Google or whatever. There are certain measurements for how much hay and what type of hay is recommended to feed your horse and how much. So what I did was I started feeding him 25 pounds of 80-20 kind of alfalfa grass mix, and then I started putting him on the beet pulp pellets and the Triple Crown Senior Diamond, and it worked. He dropped the gut, and his muscle tone really filled out. Now, mind you, all this is with the appropriate amount of exercise, walking, riding, other things like that. But he didn't seem lame, and he didn't seem to really be concerned with me being on his back or walking him around. But I just couldn't imagine having my stomach that wide and not being that comfortable, because it was making my saddle fit really weird. But anyway, not 2 months into it, I saw a dramatic difference. And like I said, I'm not a vet, but I will say that another thing I learned about horses along the way is they're designed to basically be eating grass 24/7. So they've always got some kind of food available to them. My main feed is fresh forage, grass and alfalfa, and I only give them the mash mix is what I call it, the Triple Crown and the beet pulp pellets. I only give that to them once a day. But the alfalfa, I'll feed it to them twice a day. Now, if I'm having a hard, long day and I need to, I'll just feed them once. I'll just give them a big 40-pound chunk in the morning. And if I'm going to be gone all day and I can't afford to come back, then, you know, it is what it is. So anyway, yeah. If you're looking into getting into horses, I hope this video helps. And if you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments.